I wanted to wait to talk about this, but unfortunately, this can't wait on any longer. What I want to talk about involves a bit of good news, or at least it will be good news unto itself, not so much the external factors that I am wanting to, of course, tear into. You may notice that this picture of the front door of my parents' house, which before I took it just this Saturday had overgrowth covering it. Obviously, overgrowth blocking the front door is no longer the case because thanks to somebody in real life, I was finally able to get aid from a local gardening group, having to pay $350 before the additional $10 tip for each of the three people who were on site. But they did clean up the front yard and also handle some work on the backyard. Mind you, there is still quite a way to cleaning the house itself, but as long as the perimeter has something to show activity, as well as hopefully get the county to talk to me, that should discourage attempts to cause the house any problems. I even found out that one of the neighbors has been feeding the cats who've been hanging around the house, and has also been watchful for any potential squatters already, never mind potential arsonists, so that's very useful. I should also mention what I did on site. Directly, it wasn't nearly as much as any of the individuals within a trio equipped with power tools that I would, of course, have had to take heed with approaching, but I could provide personalized input, most notably preserving a butterfly rock that my mom would have valued. I have said rock on me, and I'm currently keeping it under watch until I can properly liaise with family members for giving it to an aunt of mine in Los Angeles. Additionally, there was some work in more secure locations that I could manage, such as fixing up a garden hose wheel that got overwhelmed by the overgrowth. Though part of me wishes that I could have done more, and it's worth noting that I did have a personal camp set up at a nearby house with thankfully supportive neighbors who conveniently had accounts on their front porch. Of course, I did have to worry about my having not the thought to recharge either my 3DS or my cell phone overnight, but I had to wait a while before I could pay them. Ah, say like yeah. Mm. And yeah, somehow I get the feeling that my management of Secret of Evermore paid off. Even without somebody named Maggie Danger streaming my balance patch of the game the day before to his amazement with my handling of the difficulty to the point he reached. Oh, and wow, did I balance Vigor the Indestructible so well. But you see where I would provide that tip to begin with, because I had a water bottle on me as well. So my interest wasn't being fair, even if resources still limited my provision. Of course, I do have to bring up how it still took this long to get this going at all, thanks to politics. I could have had that under control even with the internet hate machine if people like RoahmMythril had chosen to care, not abuse the megaphone that the likes of Toko WH call me, and I quote verbatim, 100% a troll. Inner growth moral myopia. Fact is, even with the overgrowth clear up, you see the obvious problems. So even with the pandemic, this should have been actively called out by more people than myself and the building code people who put the abatement notice on the house before. Particularly my mom, when my mom was already deceased well before the virus mess started, and the house was a mess even when she was alive. I want somebody to tell me how this sort of problem isn't where the apathy of both California in general and the gaming communities lead to. So what makes this urgent enough to post that the guy who yet I point out did a trope workshop entry for savvy guy and energetic girl would ignore still lingering security concerns? I'll tell you what, and it might actually shock you. It's the bad weather that Texas is currently handling. A very fast storm from a jet stream that actually benefited California by providing California simple rain. The moment I saw about the five tornadoes and realized how well off California is in comparison with weather, I've mm, been planning to handle this video because I am simply sick of the internet and hate machine wanting to claim that I would think that Texas outreach deserves the entirety of the winter storm earlier this year. The same one Ted Cruz fled against with his own family as his scapegoats. Never mind that I would think that apartment fires in an area where the general Celsius amount is in the negatives would be ridiculous anywhere, let alone Texas, which isn't even known for having cold weather in the first place, and so was was kind of ill prepared for it at all. Texas, I have figured out a general plan for my parents' house. Clean it up, including digging out my dad's ashes for actual management with them. Then have it go to somebody who would patch up the plant work and use the place as a potential meeting place for environmentalism, preferably with understanding of wanting harmony between technology and nature. I want people to take notes, and this is absolutely you, Texas, should take notes with. I may find that Freudian excuse is no excuse trope asks to be just as Darwinistic as those milking sympathy to show why relying on a Freudian excuse is a bad idea. But that doesn't change when you, Texas, exploit that to make laws allowing for public gun carrying without need of a permit. I wish I was making that up, but it's something I stumbled upon trying to look up weather reports for Texas, and I will hold it against them until I see owning up from FUNimation for exploiting society's general hypocritical thought processes just to invent a scandal for publicity, RoahmMythril for doing things like not even asking questions about having a gun shop as a family business, and the Texas government for their attempts to silence anybody who calls out their loads while claiming to be the victims in all of this, because clearly they couldn't possibly be imitating this character from Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice named Roger Retton. Really, really, how do you help people like that, even when they've proven that they like being their own worst enemies? Jeez.